name's Remy. What's your name again?
It's me, Remy. My name is Utril.
Utril? Pleasure to meet you, man. So I overheard you speaking to somebody, and you said that somebody gifted you the saxophone?
Yeah, someone heard me playing here for about 5 days straight, and that turned into the guy saying, hey, I got to buy you a cup of coffee on the 5th day. And then that turned into, hey, I have a gift for you. So this 1921 horn named Gratitude was bestowed upon me.
Was he a musician, or he just really liked your music?
A quantum physicist.
A quantum physicist?
Yeah, who I guess was coming out here to train. You know, everybody was stuck in the house, pandemic times.
Yeah.
He said, I was going to the west side of the park, but I heard your sound. I followed for 10 minutes and found you here.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
So did he already have this, or he went to buy it?
This was a gift of a gift. He was going to gift me a very expensive horn that he owned. He said it brought so much joy to the house when he played it for the first time in like the past 5 years that his wife said they couldn't part ways. And I said, thank you for thinking of me in the first place. That's powerful. I was gifted a tuba, a beautiful tuba, and he said, I want you to sell this and buy your dream horns.
Okay.
So it turned into this and another saxophone as well.
That's amazing.
Yeah, man.
And how long have you been playing music for?
I've been playing saxophone 24 years now.
24 years?
Yep.
Where did you get the influence for that?
When the two towers fell in New York.
No, really?
My mom was stationed in Korea at the time. She was in from 97 to 2017.
All right.
U.S. Army. So when 9/11 happened, my mom was stationed in Korea, and she flew back from Daegu, South Korea, and came back to New York. We're moving to North Carolina in 2 weeks.
Okay.
I said, no, we're not. And
Where
2 weeks later, Fort Bragg, Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Okay.
So that's where I ended up picking up saxophone, and it was perfect because there was maybe 6 alto saxophonists, and there was 1 tenor saxophone.
Oh, that's awesome. So you already had like the community built in there.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow. So she was in the Army, she was based in Korea, and you were over here in New York.
I was here with my sister and my dad.
With your sister and your dad.
Yeah, and my father-in-law passed away about 9 years ago now.
I'm sorry.
And I knew him for 9 months, and it felt like 9 years.
Okay.
He happened to drop these seeds of wisdom from trees that no longer grow.
Yeah, and you felt like those things helped you have like a stable mindset throughout life?
Yeah, he told me you're gonna have to work hard every day, and you're gonna have to have patience. And he's a sensei, you know, and that's what brought me actually out to Central Park. He did bronze work and did sculptures of animals and faces, and we still have some in our house that are
some in Central Park?
No, we still have some in our house, but he studied in Switzerland.
You were making it seem like he did the Balto.
No.
No, but that's incredible.
So yeah, I learned that he learned the skeletal system before he casted these pieces. So he did the skeletal system, built over the skeletal system, casted them in bronze. And what I learned is in this lifetime, we got to create something or a memory that will outlive us and inspire others.
Okay.
That's why I do with the music. I'm the keeper of the music that inspired me, and I send it out in a way that people can be inspired.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah, for sure. And then, as we're supposed to move back to New York, and one of my good friends was supposed to move to Germany, our itineraries got switched. So he ended up going back to New York, and I ended up moving to Germany for 6 years.
And how old were you then?
Age 12 to 18, I was in Germany.
Age 12 to 18.
Yep.
So how was that? Because that's a huge culture shock.
Everything came together. I started having Russian friends, German friends, Turkish friends. I was always into music, food, culture, and that's what propelled me to end up staying there the full 6 years. We got approved for our last 3 years from the U.S. Army commander because we wrote to him about everything I was doing in Germany.
What things did you grab from the culture while you were there?
I knew all the different cities, all the different food spots, the clubs, all the different stuff. I had a good friend that was German and black. His mom was from Chicago. His dad was from a big attorney in Germany. This guy was pretty much my into Germany. He got me into the Schwimmbads, which is like little mini water parks that people go, they socialize of all ages and have food, and there's like one in almost every city in Germany. So he got me in tune with the culture, and he could speak German in a smooth way that was very inviting for me to learn the culture.
So it didn't feel as cold as like the stereotypical thing that people say it is?
No, because it's about humanity and the different intersections that we have. You might like English because you hear somebody from New York or from New Orleans speak, and maybe you might not like it because you hear someone with a certain accent. So it's all about the timbre and the touch, just how it is with music for me.
Yeah.
Playing out here in Central Park, I've actually been gifted about 180 countries of currency from people who I've met from different places around the world. So this has been something that has really recharged my spirit and invigorated that purpose. I've been flown to Ireland to do a wedding.
Oh, that's awesome.
A couple I met here, years after I met them. A lot of different things have happened, spontaneous and in a very spiritual, positive light.
So like aside from music, you have like this very like Zen, calm kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Very like this like spiritual healing kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Not like stone energy, but like you're there to like be peaceful.
Yeah.
How do you
I'm there to bring people together.
When things don't go your way?
Yeah.
How is it that you deal with that? Because we live in a time where I feel like a lot of people have like a lot of anxiety.
The biggest thing is acknowledging something. Once you acknowledge something and you can see it, it's not a surprise anymore. You can finally respond to it. They look at something and they react of what they thought it possibly could be. That's fear manifesting itself in a fresh moment where it doesn't belong. What I see is an opportunity to acknowledge what's going on and what I have control over. I have control over taking a deep mindful breath in and realizing that I can be positively attached to what my journey is in this life without being attached to anything that takes me away from that understanding that I have. If somebody has this energy and they're running at you with anger, spiritually or physically, you don't have to get on that train. If you take one step out the way, that person's gonna keep going at the speed of whatever conviction they have. You don't have to take that on. So I learned, to be patient and to be, selective with who I give my energy to as well as who I receive energy from.
Yeah. It's also with that too, even like the things you listen to or the things you say, like it's all very specific and it definitely helps with that too.
My best revenge is to do better.
Okay.
If someone says I give them a headache and I remove myself from their presence and they still have a headache for days and years to come, I wasn't the headache. So, sometimes you reward dysfunction with distance.
Okay.
And you have to be disciplined within yourself to forgive them.
Yeah.
But you're not forgiving them for them, you're forgiving them for you.
Yeah. Because you need peace of mind. It's not just about them.
Of course.
All right, man. I don't want to take any
All
more of your
good days,
time.
man.
Yeah. Pleasure speaking with you.
Likewise, man.
Have a wonderful day.
You too.
And thank you for listening to Act Out to Purpose, everybody. If you like what we were talking about, please subscribe, share with your friends, and check out his music. He's wonderful, all right? Take care, y'all. Cool? Yeah.
Yes, sir. We are good. Sometimes people ask me for directions to dessert, and I always make sure I tell them a number of minutes and
culturally.
And second. So that way when they walk away, they're like, 2 minutes and 3 seconds?
I forgot to mention one thing. It was actually a very meaningful thing I completely forgot. So like my mom, when I was younger, she always used to take me to this zoo over here to Atlanta, and I would always play on that rock that's right over there.
Yeah.
It's very like meaningful, because I always used to play by myself. And, it's like in the 90s, my mom was just sitting on the bench just like for an hour doing nothing, just waiting for me to be done. I would always listen to like music in the area.
Oh, nice.
So it's always like a very like meaningful thing, and I love it. And like now that I'm thinking back at it, a lot of people now I see, so I'm guilty of it too, because I have a son. So like a lot of times I'll see them that they're on their phone with their children, but like you don't know what they're doing on their phone or something like that. But whenever I see it, I always think about
when I get home, I got my two ladies. I got an 7-year-old and a 7-month-old lax. And
mine's a year and a half.
Oh man, that's a year and a half. That's the best thing, bro.
Yeah,
it's a blessing. Oh, it's the biggest blessing. You get to see yourself through them. You get to see just the the power and the delicate nature of life.
That's when you really find out like the meaning. I don't feel like you can fully understand it unless you have a kid and see it. Like,
And it doesn't even truly make sense explaining it to somebody that
it's too hard. There's one of those things like you can't, unless you have a child, you can't understand it. Because like
it's beyond.
Because you think about love on the scale of the love you experience. This is just something that's completely different